Shall we begin?
So you can see that I've glued the motor into place on the base of the hull, and now I'm gluing a small piece of foam that's going to hold the battery up off of the hull as well. A little dab of hot glue will hold the battery on top of that foam. So there it is in place nicely in the back of the boat. It's nice to have that weight in the back of the boat. Now I'm going to glue another piece for the switch. This will keep the switch off of the base of the hull as well. A little bit of hot glue holds that switch in place. You can be pretty creative with the shape of this piece that you use and make it look a little more aerodynamic. So take your time and have some fun with that. Then I'm going to use the remaining pieces of the clear plastic tubes that I have to create a shield around that paddle area. We want to try and contain as much of the water in that area as possible and not get too much splashing up on the battery snap, or the switch. This is a little bit of an exercise in experimentation. You can be pretty creative with this. You can be very just utility oriented just to try and contain the water. But there's a lot you can do with it. What's important is that you keep it away from the paddle so it's not hampering the movement of the paddle. So keep gluing pieces in place and keep testing the paddle. Just make sure that it can still freely rotate while you're working on sort of that window or the windshield around the paddle area. So here I have it pretty well in place. All I have to do is work something around the motor now. So I'm going to grab another piece and get that ready. I'm going to use a marker and sort of cut or draw in a little notch that might fit around the motor. So I'm going to cut off a little piece of that, check fit, and probably make a couple of small adjustments. Seems to fit pretty well there. So what I'm going to do is just mark the base of where I want that glued down, lay down a nice bead of hot glue, and then drop the plastic on top of that. Meanwhile, I'm holding it in place. I'm going to run a couple of tests just to make sure that things don't interfere with the paddle. Got to be patient with hot glue drying. Sometimes blowing on it helps it to dry a little bit quicker, especially when you're holding something in place. But patience will pay off in this case. So now I've got the motor running and the paddle spinning really well. You can see that it's sticking out the bottom. If I put my hand there, you can hear that especially well. So that works nicely. Turn it off, and next we're going to create the, let's get the wires in place here. So a little bit of wire management goes a long way. So if we glue down the wires to the bottom of the hull, then they're not dragging in the water and getting into the solder joints and causing a short. So the wires are kind of long, so what you want to do is hold it in place and make sure that you have beads of hot glue over the pieces that you want to glue into place. So next we're going to work on the rudder using that small aluminum sheet that was in the kit. We're going to mark about a ½ inch down from the top, 1 inch from the right. We're going to cut that little notch out just like this. So the tab that's sticking out, we're going to bend at about a right angle from the rudder. And then we're simply just going to glue that onto the back of the hull of the paddle boat. So a bit of hot glue and stick it right on there. This will be adjustable. You're going to have to adjust it to try and make your boat go either straight or if you want it to go in circles. So here's a test of it in the water. It's made in voyage. You can see that it's rubbing against the side, so I made a little adjustment to the rudder to see if I could make it go straighter. Maybe went a little bit too far this time. Thanks for watching, and never stop tinkering.
This is not a drill.
Repeat, this is not a drill.